A conversation I had on Friday reminded me of a conversation I had when I was still back at Purdue University with a professor there, a Catholic, and someone I knew fairly well. And he and I were talking about, at that time, this new encyclical that Pope Francis had issued on the environment. It's called Laudato Si. And he said something that kind of surprised me, mostly because he had, in other conversations, he had been pretty supportive of the Pope. And he said he didn't like the encyclical. And the reason is also something I didn't expect. He said that something along the lines of the Pope should be doing things for the poor instead of worrying about the environment. That didn't go over very well there either, and not with me either. So on Friday, I'm having coffee with one of my Dominican brothers, and we were talking about this new initiative of Pope Francis. It's called a motu proprio, and that in Latin for means on my own initiative. So he issued one on Thursday. I don't know if you've heard about it. Among priests, it got a lot of notice. It was talking about a particular way to celebrate Mass, or more specifically, how you're not going to be celebrating Mass. And I'll presume that nearly every Catholic would agree, even if they don't agree with what the Pope might have to say, that this recent initiative is more in keeping with what popes do. But again, people may well say, especially if they don't like what the Pope had to say, stick with helping the poor. So, of course, which I pointed out to this professor from Purdue, of course, the Holy Father talks a great deal about how the abuse of our environment hurts the poor. And there's more, of course, because there are politicians and others that are also quick to suggest that the Holy Father shouldn't even be talking about stuff like this, about the environment, or anything other than issues of faith. Well, in today's gospel, we hear, when he disembarked and saw the vast crowd, his heart was moved with pity for them, for they were like sheep without a shepherd. So we may be thinking, okay, here comes the story about the feeding of the 5,000, and you're right, but you're going to wait till next week to hear about that. But what do we hear? The Good Shepherd does this. The first thing he does, he began to teach them many things. He began to teach them many things before he feeds them. Well, how is teaching being a good shepherd? Well, a shepherd leads. And when the flock is us, human beings, then maybe leadership is more easily shown or demonstrated in teaching. And one of the deepest human hungers that we can have is to understand one's place in the world and how we're to live out our place in the world among all these relationships that we have. Our relationship with God, our relationship with other human beings, with other living things, and the earth itself. There's another reading or writing of Pope Francis that came out in the middle of the pandemic. It's called Let Us Dream. And the Holy Father tells us this. This is a moment to dream big, to rethink our priorities, what we value, what we want, what we seek, and to commit to act in our daily life on what we have dreamed of. What he's asking us to consider is that we believe in an all-powerful God. And as horrible as this pandemic has been and continues to be, something good is going to come from that. And this is our opportunity to dream, to look at how we will be different as a result of this experience that we have had for the last 12 or 14 months. Pope Francis gives us, along with the rest of the world, teachings about our place as human beings who are connected with one another and each other living thing on our planet. All through his teachings, when he speaks to how we live within our families or our communities, he feeds us in all sorts of ways that help us to thrive. Francis, our shepherd, teaches some hard truth and shows us how we have promoted a way of life that has meant suffering for the poor and excluded many from sharing in the resources that we all need, that all of us need in order to thrive. You know, when I think of my own parents and their role as shepherds of our little flock, their little flock, I recall most vividly not my mother's wonderful lasagna, although it's certainly memorable, but what my mom and my dad taught me about being a caring, generous, sacrificial person. Whether we are the shepherd of the Roman Catholic Church or the Catholic Student Center at Washington University or our family, we can feed our hunger for wisdom and can provide a way of adapting to the effects of changes in our world. Our Lord has spread a table for us in the midst of a desert place. Let us all sit down to this feast of his teaching. Our Good Shepherd Francis knows well that our call to feed the poor takes many forms. Do we?